breakups and get
We've gone straight into that. We haven't even done an intro.
Oh fuck, sorry man. You can see how hazy I am. I'm so just like I get like in one brownie, I can't do anything.
So again, welcome back to another episode of Subject to Change.
Should we just start again?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So we're back. Thank you very much, everyone, for checking back in once again. As usual, if this is your first time, please follow us on all social media platforms. So that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Please rate us on Spotify.
Give us 5-star,
please. SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts. And now, if you're actually listening to us on Spotify, you are also able to watch the full thing in video. So please do that as well. Let us know what you think. But we'll give you 5 seconds to just give us a little 5-star on whatever you're listening to.
5 seconds, a bit short now.
Or go on TikTok and follow us. Beautiful.
There we go.
So, how are you today, Daniel?
Mate, I'm good.
Yes.
I'm good. It's a lovely sunny day.
It is.
And I'm good. I'm excited what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
So, we are going to be talking about, I guess, why don't you kick off?
I'll kick off.
I'll let you kick off.
Yeah, so today we're going to be covering a few things, and I think one of the main things is, I guess, dealing with breakups. And I guess the best way to start something about how to deal with breakups and the do's and the don'ts, and I guess basically some advice on how to deal with a breakup is to kind of get a good understanding of how do you know when to break up with someone. When is the right time? What are certain aspects of the relationship that when you're in it, it makes you realize that it's probably time to go. So what aspects of a relationship when you're in it will give you an indication that it's probably the right time for you to leave?
I guess for me, it's just when your needs aren't being met anymore. You know, I think that a lot of people stay in things for so long because of the emotional investment they've put into that. And we've already spoken about like sunk cost fallacy. But it's, you know, I always say, if you think about your relationship and whatever you're in, and you're like, if it is how it is now, if this was like this on day one, would I still be in this relationship? And if not, why? My needs are still the same. So why is it I'm sacrificing what I need? And I think, you know, that's not always a black and white question. But
Do you not think people's needs also change over the time of the relationship?
Your needs should also still be met.
Yeah.
So I think it's always a question you should ask yourself. And, you know, like I said, it's not always completely black and white, but I think it's a good question to ask to, you know, reevaluate if you're not in a happy situation. Because so many people just, you know, go for so long and they're really unhappy. So I think, you know, if your needs are being met and you're not feeling like seen or heard, I think, you know, reevaluate. But it's always a scary situation when it comes to dramatically changing a piece of your life, you know.
100%. I do think I completely reiterate and agree with everything you said there.
Of course you do.
Because you just always speak facts.
Because they're just facts.
But when to know is the right time, I think when you find yourself just completely lost in the relationship, when the sense of comfortability is no longer there, where whenever you're around that person, you'd rather be somewhere else. I think when you find yourself compromising your happiness for the sake of the relationship, and if there doesn't seem to be an equal amount of compromising within a relationship, I think so many people need to understand that throughout the journey of a relationship, it is going to be a certain level of compromising on both sides. And if there's never any compromising, it's never going to work. So I think if there seems to be a discrepancy between you compromising in the relationship and the other person not, or if you're to a point where you're fully compromising your happiness in order for them to feel comfortable, I think that's when you know there needs to be a conversation that needs to be had in order to kind of figure out whether this relationship's actually going to be for you. And also, someone actually said, a lot of people know exactly when they want to end it, but are too afraid of the unknown. So prolonging making the decision seems to be quite a regular thing.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think that people know when they want to break up with someone, but you're right, like people extend it and they go, oh, we'll see how, you know, things go over the next couple of months. And quite often you don't need time to make a decision, you just need like information to make a decision.
Yeah.
And if you have all the information you need, well, you should make the decision if you can.
Yeah.
It's a very good point though.
It's a very good point.
Just spit bars all day. But anyway,
That's funny.
It's true though. It's true. It is
Yeah,
very, very
100%.
true. And it's right. And so many of us don't, because we always think time is going to make a difference. And, you know, if we give more time, then we may, feel a different way. And that's why, like for my last relationship, it took me ages to break up, you know, like one before that, it took me ages to break up, is because you just think, oh, maybe this feeling will go away.
Yeah.
This lackluster for the person, you know. And also another big one, if you guys aren't fucking and you're living together, you're living with a housemate. You're not living with a partner.
Yeah, that's also true.
Like you are living with a housemate. And
also if the environment becomes toxic as well. Like if you start to realize there's aspects of that person where they're probably not taking, I guess, your feelings and emotions seriously, or if there's certain insecurities that you got to the point where you're able to open up to them, and then they start maybe making fun of that, or using that as kind of ammo in an argument or a disagreement. I think those kind of indications are very, very important when it comes to really understanding whether that relationship's done or not. Because as soon as someone starts doing that in the relationship, it shows that there's probably a good chance that they don't even like you anymore.
You build a lot of resentment after a while. It's so... Yeah, you can build a lot of resentment, and that feeds into it as well. The more you stay with that person and the more you don't make a decision, you get this just icky resentment.
And ask yourself, do you actually like them?
It's you start creating arguments out of nothing as well.
You can be with someone for so many years, 2, 3, 4 years, and you can love that person with all your heart. But there's just a massive difference between loving someone and liking someone. You could have a parent, a mum or dad who you love, but you don't like, and you only love them because they're your mother or they're your father, because you have to. It's just like it's innate in you to love that person. So if you're with someone for 6, 7 years, you can love that person with all your heart. But if you're asking yourself, when you look at them, it's like, I actually don't even like you. Like, why am I here?
I think Daniel Sloss in his program, he was like, it gets to a point where your partner could even be just drinking orange juice in the morning, just be like, you're so fucking annoying. Oh my god!
Everything that they do just like
is annoying.
You.
Oh yeah. So 100%. I think that takes like a massive part to play. But when you've actually going through a breakup, or what I guess is an experience. What's a memory that you have of like how you dealt with a breakup? Like
how I dealt with a breakup.
Do you think you've what's like one of your most well-known memories of dealing with a breakup? Like a moment you felt, or how you dealt with it. Was there like panic or fear or just calm? Were you just, for fuck's sake, Oakley?
So I have had 3 proper girlfriends my whole life.
Yeah.
And probably the one that would have been the most memorable was probably the one from 7 years ago. Because you broke up on my birthday.
She broke up on your birthday?
Yeah.
She dumped you, or you dumped her?
No, she dumped me.
How old are
you? 25.
On your birthday?
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose.
What do you mean? Was it an accident?
You know what? It's one of those things where whenever you feel that something's coming to an end, and you may be having conversations here and there. And I guess this conversation just ended up happening on my birthday, and there's no way after having a conversation could you it couldn't keep going. Like you couldn't just be
You're at the point of no return.
Yeah, there's no return. Like you couldn't just pretend that it wasn't happening and then just go on as normal and go out for dinner together, whatever, for my birthday. Just so that happened on my birthday. Shout out to you if you're listening. We have a good relationship now, so it's fine. Like, there's no hate.
You sound very defensive.
So yeah, that happened. I think the way I dealt with that one, I was like in denial for ages.
What do you mean? Like after it happened?
Yeah, I didn't even tell anyone.
Fair.
Because I was just like, I was baffled that it happened. It was one of those ones where things were going.
She didn't know that you were missing Northern Ireland. Is that why you were baffled?
That's why I was in the first place.
You get what you've done, right?
You've ruined my street cred.
Baffled.
But yeah, like whenever it happened, I was just like, how have I got here? From like it being so good to then all of a sudden just like dropping like that. So I was completely in denial, thinking, now we'll get back together. La 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 la. Didn't tell any of my friends for I think 2 weeks. I think only my mum knew, and then one of the lads from my town, but no one else like pretty much knew. My mum saw like how shit I was. Like I was proper like I felt like I was depressed. I wasn't depressed, but at the time I was like, this is horrendous.
It's
and
a
like,
wound, mate. You've got to like fucking take time to heal. You know what I mean?
It wasn't an enjoyable moment, and I think back then I just didn't even know how to deal with stuff like that at all. Like didn't know how to process it. All I felt was it just reiterated to what I know now to be like triggers from childhood. Like the breakup, it was just like so out of the blue, and I think whenever I experienced that breakup, I was just like, why do I feel like lost and unwanted and sad? And I think that's why I couldn't tell anyone, because it just made me feel so weak.
Yeah.
Even just saying the words out loud to people, because whenever you say things out loud, it makes it more real.
Maybe confirming something that you might already believe about yourself. So
Yeah.
no one, like,
So just like saying it to people was just like intense.
Yeah, man.
And I guess looking back on it now, I can understand why I reacted the way I did, because like it just triggered so many things that I'd maybe subconsciously thought about myself.
Yeah.
But moving forward to like nowadays, I'm a lot better when it comes to that sort of stuff. Like I've learned to understand that whenever people don't want to be with you, a lot of times it's not to do with you.
It's to do with them.
It's to do with them. And in this case, it wasn't to do with me.
Yeah.
Like it definitely wasn't. Like
I mean, I'd say because it could also be like depending on the relationship. Could be because of that person.
Yeah, but like, in this case for sure, it was not to do with me whatsoever. Like we've had a conversation even post the breakup, like 2-3 years after, and
she saw the Mr. Combank ad.
Yeah, and she's just like, you know what? I made a mistake. No. She said if it was a different time in her life, like it would have worked out, but just at that time, and basically, like we've had the conversation about the reasons why, and it makes so much sense. And even looking back, it's like because I wanted to try and stay with her while she's going through it, and now I'm just like, imagine I did that. That would have been the most horrendous experience and relationship I could ever think of. And we've both said that, like it just was one of those ones that just wasn't meant to be. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's how I dealt with that.
I think it's people deal with breakups in like a very different way, and you know I've been through one or two like big breakups, and like just hella anxiety, loads of fear, like the unknown, as you're saying, like you don't really know what's going to happen. I think it's normal. I think it's normal to go through those like different phases, and it's okay to just accept Oakley, come here. This is a bit, you know, you can absolutely just boot him. Oh God, so much is happening. Woo. So I was saying that it's okay when you go through a breakup just to like acknowledge and accept that's the way you feel, and it's fucking shit, and you don't feel really good. Like when I broke up with my ex, we were still living together for like another month, just because we had to break the lease and stuff like that. And
that's mad,
man. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. It is a weird situation. You know, and everyone knows this, right? Everyone has fucked an ex. Everyone has done it.
Yeah.
The sex when you break up, it's a lot better. Like
I've never done it like within like that early breakup period.
But have you fucked an ex though?
Yes, I've
and
had sex with an ex.
No, but it's like
it's lovely.
It's because there's none of that like baggage or responsibility to that person. Yeah. It's just, you know, that's why it's so
enjoyable.
Good. Exactly, it's just enjoyable.
But
you know, but at the time we were still living together for like another month and breaking the lease and stuff like that, and so it was just weird, and I think it was a lot harder because you don't have that period to actually like feel the breakup almost and see what's going on. Like I've moved into like the spare bedroom and stuff like that, but you know, you don't really get time to like feel what's going on. So I think it's important that when you do, bit of a burp there. That was just, I think it's important when you do go through a breakup, the first thing you want to do in any realistic situation, obviously if you're not living together, is do not have any contact with that person. I'd say don't contact for at least like a month. Have like a month.
Give yourself the space from your partner.
Give yourself the space. Like, I think it's really important because you also want to like make sure that when you like have that space, it's so you can actually, I guess, detox and, you know, leave that situation and actually go through like the motion of feeling the breakup and understanding what's going on. And it's never going to be something easy. And in that period, you're going to want to speak to that person.
Yeah.
And that's the time you're going to want to speak to them the most and lean on them the most. But at that time, when you feel that way, it's probably the exact opposite you should be doing.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, I do think taking time for yourself, taking time out for you is one of the most important parts about whenever you become single. And don't even feel like you need to do this whole soul searching of where you need to be, where you need to go next. I think just existing for, especially if it's been if it's been a long relationship and you've just got out of it, just being able to exist.
Just sit with it.
Just exist in this world, this fucked up world that we're in, and just be. Like, don't actually think just because I'm breaking up, like, oh my goodness, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like, yeah, there'll come a time where you do need to start, I guess, creating a life and living a life without that person. Because I guess if you are in your mid 20s or mid 30s and you've been with someone for 10 years, like that's a solid percentage of your life. You know what I mean? Like that's close to like half your life.
In that period is where you probably would have experienced the most
growth.
Yeah.
Like that point of your early 20s, mid 20s into your 30s. That is a part of the time in your life where you've probably done the most changing, the most learning, the most developing. So the life that you're now going to be living outside of that experience where you've grown with that person is going to seem a bit odd at the time, but allowing yourself the space to just appreciate what that journey was and what the experience was, whether it was shit or great, like allowing yourself that time to just rest in it. And then after that, go out and then just start smashing the world. Not like people, but
it was a great word to choose there. Start smashing.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's like you're also at that point. You're also in your most like emotional state, and you might just go through a period where you take some time apart, and you might end up saying things to that person that you may later regret. And you could also end up, you know, at that time, you may be in a place where you want to give them the space to reevaluate, to see if it's something they might want to revisit. You know, not every breakup ends in a forever breakup. Some people just go through a period and it's like, we need to just take some space for a bit. And, you know, some people reevaluate, they have amazing lives together. Like, not everything is going to be finite.
Yeah.
But it's like at that point, if you do want that to happen, you don't want to say things or do things that are going to push that person even further away.
Yeah.
Because if you're there and just throwing your anxiety and your stress and your anger and your like sadness about it onto the fire that they're already dealing with, they know what it's like, you're only going to push that person away even more. So it's like, let them have the time to feel it as well. You know, let them see what it's like not having you in their life. And not having you text them and whatever it is, let them feel it. Because, you know, like you throwing shit at them is not going to help the situation.
And sometimes absence does make the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
Like it really does. And I think, especially like you said, if it's one of those breakups where it's like you both probably know that there's a level of it that's not fully finite, that space with no contact with that person might be the best thing for both of you.
Yeah.
But I do think the good thing, which a friend of mine, shout out to Lee Whitty, said to me that whenever you break up with someone and you ever are in a position where you're like, oh, I've just made a massive mistake, write out all the cons about the person. write out all the cons about the person, the relationship, and every time you're thinking about it, just read them.
But he's still with her.
Funny.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
But yeah, like, because because naturally when you're in a position where you've just broken up with someone and now you're thinking about getting back with them, you're always going to go straight to the positives.
Yeah.
Like the way you felt when you first met them instead of like how you felt after 10 years. You're always going to go back to like the best parts about that relationship. So he said to me, write down the cons of the person and the relationship, and every time you have a doubt, just read them. And once you read them, you're like, okay, no, there's no way. What's the point?
Quite often you're right, because in that moment you think about all the positives, and I think when we like break up with someone, we think about the life we could have had, and
about the life we were actually living.
and about who that person could have been. But if that person could have been that person, they would have been that person.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're mourning someone who you created. You're
head.
mourning what that person could have been, but they would have been that person.
Yeah, you're creating almost an unrealistic expectation of what you want that person to be. But when they don't live up to that, then you're upset, and it's not that person's fault.
It's okay to be sad that someone didn't turn out to be the person you wanted them to be, but don't mourn them like they were that person.
Yeah.
You know?
Nice little one there. 21 minutes. I'll make sure I'll cut that one for you. I can see you make sure I get this perfect. Don't mourn that person for exactly what they want you to be, but then mourn them for the. I was just like, this guy
today, man.
This guy's getting this plagiarizing down to a T. Shout out Matthew Hussey.
Oh, is it hot in here? Or is it just me?
It's just you.
It's fucking hot. Though. He's got some great bars. He's
funny.
got some great bars. I heard that a while ago, and that's like stuck with me.
What about some don'ts to like things you shouldn't do when you break up with someone?
Things that you shouldn't do, and I preface
Don't
this
stalk
with
their social media.
Huh?
Don't stalk their social media.
I preface this. I've done it. We've all done it. And even though I say don't do it, you may do it, and it's okay to make a mistake, but don't turn it into a habit. Don't stalk them on social media. Yeah. You don't have to unfollow them if you don't want to, but mute their stories at least.
That's what I do.
And it's so you don't need it coming up. You don't need it like being more accessible than it already is, because we forget that social media is just a highlight reel, and you may see them the week after out with their friends having a good time, living their best life. You're like, oh, that's weird. They've lost 10 kilos, and you know, but don't forget that's just a highlight reel. You know,
I would always recommend to mute them, because I feel like some people can get quite butthurt when they get unfollowed, and I think by unfollowing it just creates a reason for them to message you, be like, why have you unfollowed me? Like, I thought we were okay. So I think by muting them, both stories and on their feed, on their posts, I think that's the easiest way to get them off your social media, and to also not leave a gateway for them to have an argument or a conversation, because so many people who end relationships love to have arguments with each other, because even though it's not a positive interaction, they just like the fact that they're interacting with their ex-partner.
You're reigniting like emotions, or reigniting just some form of like connection.
So I think muting is ideal.
It's how you also tarnish like the kind of how you left the relationship, you know? If that's what happens when you break up, that's all you're going to remember a few years down the line, is like all the bitter arguments you had afterwards. And it's like, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to have that. And I've done that. I've been there before, and it's horrible.
Not a nice feeling.
No, it's not a nice
I think another one is to don't isolate yourself from everyone. It's okay to be alone and to spend time on your own, to kind of reflect on what you had, what could have been, and how your I guess your future on your own, and where the potential new partner will be. But I feel it's so important not to completely cut yourself off from the world, because that could be a place of isolation is a place where negative and harmful thoughts can come to you, especially depending on how the breakup went. So I think it's important to not really cut yourself off from your friends and your family at that point.
I feel like so many, like I spoke to lots of like women about this, and I think that what I've got back is that men do more of like to get over someone, get under someone, where women don't do that as much. This is just like what I've heard from like experience. That's not women's go-to, is just to shag someone else. Like men do that, we do that, I've done that, but it's like, I think it's, you know, it nulls the short-term pain. It does always come back round in the end, but at the time it's a very quick and easy way. I don't say you should do it. You know, whatever, it's personal preference.
Yeah, it's almost like women and men are flipped. So like in the initial stages, men will go out, party. Women will like fester and think about it. And then in 3 months, they like do the swap where the girls like pretty much got over it. She's like partying. And then in 3 months,
and we're just crying.
We're just sitting there like, this is horrible. But that's so true though. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones?
Other like don'ts of the... Yeah.
Don't stop taking care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so easy to just like, yeah, because you sit around and you just like mope, and then you start like giving up on yourself, and you start working in yourself and like giving up on the gym. But loads of people, they go through a breakup, and you see fucking dudes, they get jacked as fuck.
Yeah.
They're like, I now need to look like my best self. Why don't you do that in a relationship?
Yeah.
Why were you not doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, do you know what? There's a thing, right? So like, you break up, and your ex looks a lot better now they're not with you. He looks a lot better. It's like, why are you guys just not doing this?
That when you were
Why
together?
were you taking care of yourself? It's probably because they weren't happy.
It's the comfortability as well. Yeah. I think when people get comfortable, they think that their partner should love them through thick and thin. You know what I mean? So, but also I think there's a level of accountability where if you do actually love your partner, completely in love with them, I think it is your responsibility to a degree to let them know when you feel like they're probably becoming quite unhealthy. I think.
Do you think that I heard this ages ago, it was like, I think you might have said it, if you're friends with your ex, you still love them or you never did?
Yeah, I've said that.
Do you think that's right?
That if you're still able to be
friends with them, you either still love them or you never did?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah.
It's a very interesting,
interesting. If you're actually in love or loved your ex, and you can be, and when I say friends, I don't mean like, I think you can be fine with them, and when you see them, you can say hello. I mean like actual friends, like still talk like daily hanging out. Like I think if you're able to do that, or even hanging out with them in a friendship group,
mate, like, it's horrible.
That'd be the worst thing. But like I do think, and I've said this for years, if you're able to still be friends with your ex after breakup, you're never in love with them, or you still do. And please someone, if you're listening to this or watching this, please comment or message us if you disagree.
We'll caption that bit. That's going to be pretty good. Someone's going to have something to say on that.
You want to say it again?
What is it we said?
No, I'll say it. I do believe, I'll say it again. I do believe that if you're still able to be friends with your ex, you're either never in love with them or you are still in love with them. I hope that comes through the mic.
Mic drop.
That was a mic drop. But yeah, if anyone does disagree with that, or even if you do disagree, if you got examples of that, please let us know. And then we'll happily have a conversation about that for sure. But I do think that's fair. I don't know anyone that's actually friends with their ex who doesn't still love them.
Nah, I don't know anyone like that. Nah. I remember my first girlfriend. I was like 17. We were in the same friend group. Man, it was so weird. Like being broken up with someone and still hanging in the same friend group. And we got back together eventually. But it was just like, it's just weird. It doesn't give you literally any time to go through the breakup. It doesn't give you any because you break up, and then you have your time where you want to not be with the friend group for a bit because everyone's hanging out, and then like a week or two later you're hanging out again. It's just like there's no time to really feel what's going on. And then you're out, and it's like at parties you don't really know what to do, and it's just like I feel sorry for people that when they break up and they're in the same friend group still. It's a lot
horrible.
To deal with. Yeah,
that's why I think it's so important to keep those two things separate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
arm's length.
What about advice for people who have broken up?
Advice for people who have broken up is like, for a while, depending on how long you've been in the relationship for, I'd say don't get into another relationship. Like, don't go on the rebound. And this is what so many people do. They leave a relationship. There's a space where this loving emotion used to be, and a space in their puzzle, and they just want to bring someone else into it. Don't do that. I'd say have your time being single, and it doesn't mean just shagging about, but it's like, be single, be on your own, do your own things, feel what it's like to spend Sunday night or evenings alone, where you're hungover and you can't have a spoon with your partner and no one's there to pat your head and tell you it's all going to be okay. Have those moments, because that's usually what it's like. I remember, being single and when I'd be on the piss, and on a Sunday, it's just like really just like, oh God, I'm so hungover. Just want someone here. That's the times you need to be on your own, because that's the hardest.
Yeah.
So I'd say definitely just do that. Just be single. Don't go on a rebound.
I think
of being in another relationship.
Try to see the positives of the breakup. I think it's a good one.
Yeah. Your ex is your ex for a reason.
Yeah. I think you learn so much within the realms of an emotional relationship with someone. I think that's when you actually learn the most about yourself, because it teaches you what you want and what you don't want when you're in relationships with people. I think Esther Perel said something along those lines, where she says we have a lot of people now who are doing so much work in themselves and doing all this self-development, but they never actually get into relationships. And she says the only way you actually learn how far you've come and the level of self-development you've done is in accordance with relationships with others. Because you can like tell yourself that you've done so great, but how are you going to know if there's no one there to call you out on it?
That's like, you know, people being like, oh, I'd say I'm like a secure attachment now. It's like, well, let's see how you go in the next relationship.
Yeah, like that's how I feel. Because I've said to you, like, I was obviously anxious and avoidant, and I was like, I feel as if I'm secure now. But I've also said, but I won't know that until I'm in another relationship.
And I'm in those testing moments.
And I'm in those testing moments where I'm emotionally invested in someone, where I'm actually challenged with those triggers. And that's the only way you're going to know.
Yeah.
Like, your relationship with other people is the only way that you're ever going to improve moving forward in life. Because if there's no one calling you out in your bullshit, you're just going to going on living life in complete ignorance. So I do think the learning you do from these relationships is so important. So I think whenever you break up, take that moment to, I guess, learn from what you experienced in that relationship.
Yeah. Spend your time alone and just rip the turkey's head clean off.
Try not to take things personally.
What do you mean?
Try not to take, I guess, the breakup personally, especially if it was one where the person just decided that it wasn't for them. Don't think it's always about you. We've kind of touched on that quickly. It's like, it's not always going to be about you whenever a relationship ends. Sometimes it really is that person who just needs to deal with their own shit. And I think the quicker you understand that, whether it's to do with the relationship or even just life in general, things just become way easier to cope with.
Just sometimes people just don't match. They just don't match.
Literally. I think what a good one is, whatever you're feeling, whatever the feelings that you're having now won't last forever.
Yeah, massive. And it, like, even if you're, a really good thing to like remember is every feeling you have will pass. Your highest highs, your lowest lows. This moment will pass. Because you have to remember, before I was this happy, I didn't always feel like this. So logically, I will come to a point where I don't feel like that again. And the same thing when you're really sad. I didn't feel like this before. So logically, I will not feel like this at a certain point again. So everything passes. Everything
100%.
moves.
I think it's all about reading the book, The Power of Now. It is all about living in the now. And I think whenever, like you say, whenever you have these feelings and emotions, you just need to just live life always in the present and knowing that as you're going along, that feeling is always going to pass. The same way there's a one time whenever you were at your happiest and then that passed. The same way now, this moment where you feel as if you're at the saddest, it's going to pass. Your life is going to be a journey of constant changing in emotion. So I think realizing that and allowing yourself the grace to just go through those emotions and not like pretend that they're not existing and pretend that they don't actually have an effect on you, I think is so foolish. I think accepting that they're there, just going through with them is going to steady you way better moving forward.
Yeah.
I think
it's, I would love to, never know what will happen in the future, but I would love to see if I would actually be able to put all that in practice. And if I was to go through another breakup again, would I just revert back to just the easy, quick, short term, pleasure over long term? Don't know.
I think if you're done the work and you are doing the work, I think being aware of that, even if you do revert to that, I think more so being aware of the fact that you're doing it, I think is a massive thing, because people are just doing it thinking like, this is the best way. But I think
that's true.
If you're aware of that you're doing it, I think that's like a massive thing for sure.
It's better to be aware you're making the wrong decision than just like
doing it thinking like this is the best thing for me.
This is what I'm meant to be doing. It's like, I know I'm making a fucking mistake, but I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's fair.
Well, thank you very much, people.
I would love to hear, actually, if anyone on the next episode, or maybe we'll just keep it on the back burner, of like the worst breakup stories, like some funny shit out there that people have done.
That'd be good.
Like, I don't know, if you caught your mister in bed with like your brother or something. I don't know, some fucked up stories would be really good to know.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Peace.